Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where you'll hear from industry leaders in science, technology, and innovation about the power of strategic storytelling. With decades of experience, our guests will share their own insights and real-world stories to help you avoid red light barriers and ignite green light solutions, from the Zoom room to the boardroom. In each episode, we'll corkscrew downward into the guests' personal experiences of challenge and success, highlighting strategies that turn complex ideas into clear, compelling storylines for stakeholders. Here is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips to try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Here is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips to try immediately that drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where we bring to you experts in their field to share their storylines and some of the crazy winding paths they've taken to where they are today. These folks have had 20, sometimes 30 years of experience in a specific field, and I just pull out their storylines to help you. So that's really all we're going to do today. And I'm really pleased today to have one of our new acquaintances in our orbit with us. This is Tim Beshears joining us. He is the Vice President from Fox Search Group. Welcome aboard, Tim. Good to see you.
It's great to be here, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're so welcome. Well, we always start with a quick, question that everyone listening and watching is going to want to know. Just tell us about you, Tim. Tell us some of the highlights of your career journey as you came to Fox Search Group. Where'd you grow up? Basic stuff. Tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. Appreciate, again, the opportunity, Cindy. And,
Sure.
Growing up, I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit about myself. I've grown up in rural areas, very rural eastern Oklahoma. In fact, oddly enough, I was on a call once doing an intake with a guy from Toronto, and he says, "Do you have an eastern Oklahoma accent?" I was like,
No
"Are you
way.
serious?" I was blown away by it. I was like, "You've
That's
got a good
crazy.
ear for it." But, humble beginnings there. We moved my family into Little Rock, Arkansas, not too long after that in my older adolescent years, and been calling Central Arkansas home ever since then. I've got a family, a husband to my lovely wife, Brittany. I've got 3 children now. I've got Hayden, Autumn, and my newest 7-month-old Noah. And so they keep me very busy. Definitely the love of my life there, and getting to lead them. I'm also a follower of Jesus Christ as well. And so when I'm not working with Fox Search Group, I'm also a bivocational pastor leading in discipleship initiatives at our church. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing that a lot of folks don't know too much about me and a lot of our interactions. But in sharing that, Cindy, that's a lot of my heart and my passion and my why behind the work that I've accomplished. That's school. And so coming out of college, first career move, thrown into the fire, close friend of ours said, "Hey, Tim, we've had some findings come back in a recent Joint Commission survey." This is a leader at a behavioral health organization. Got called in to help assess the findings, begin building a roadmap. I went to college to study emergency administration and management. So
I didn't even know that was a thing. Wow.
Well, yeah. Oddly enough, I attended Arkansas Tech University, and we were one of the first programs, first universities to have that program, because Bill Clinton's FEMA director was from the town on the other side of the river. And so back home established that practice. Just a little fun fact about Arkansas Tech. But with that, because of my degree field, crisis management, emergency management, came in to assess the risk management findings, the emergency planning findings. And began to remediate that. And
Mhm.
at the core of that is improving, right?
Mhm.
Always, grow where you're planted. And so I
Yeah.
have a heart for people and providing safety for them.
Yeah.
And so I got to do that through process improvement there. That quickly spread into management,
Okay.
got board exposure after the first year, having to do direct reportables to
Yeah.
the operations committee and the board more broadly. And so
Yeah.
really kind of cut my teeth in terms of management operations and process there,
Mhm.
and grew that really quickly and winning hearts and minds. I got a phone call one day from a coworker I had worked with, oh goodness, probably 4 years prior. They had departed that same organization.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting outside and getting this call. Hey, Tim, I've got this situation. I remember how you fixed X, Y, and Z. Would
Oh,
you be interested in visiting with our management team?
great.
We've got this situation and we're looking to hire a
Yeah.
new executive leader. And so
Nice.
that's when I joined the Girl Scouts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and
Okay.
Texas. Stepped in initially as their chief property officer,
Nice.
and then before the end of my 6 years there, was their chief operating officer, covering
Okay.
a myriad of the operations there.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about my background,
Yeah.
and at the heart of it is people,
Yep. I can see
processes,
that.
and operations.
Okay.
And so, you'd be like, "Well, how, Tim, did you get to Fox Search Group?
Right.
You were a
Right. Tell us the
nonprofit."
bridge. There's got to be a bridge.
Yeah. And so with that, I finally hit that spot
Mhm.
where I was burned out just a little
Okay.
bit. Just
Okay.
hate to say it. After 11 years of nonprofit management,
Yeah.
I became a bit burned out with the nonprofit mindset
Mhm.
regarding work. Right?
Okay.
Maybe you've experienced this.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all part, but sometimes there's low work ethic,
Oh, well,
and
yeah,
that's when
totally.
I started making a pivot. That started really bothering me,
Sure.
because, as you can tell, I'm an all in
Yep.
kind of guy, and
Yep.
when you feel like you're carrying the bulk of it and others aren't
Yeah.
carrying that load
Oh,
with you, so that's where that entrepreneurial mindset came in. I thought, you know what, I have been helping people, I've been fixing organizations, in all those different ways. Got a phone call from a friend, God's timing on some stuff.
mhm.
I want to introduce you to my friend Terry Petzold. He
Okay.
runs Fox Search Group. He
There you
recently
go.
started it.
Yep.
One thing led to another. And so all of that passion now has been shifted into more consultation on this side
Yes.
of things.
So
Most people think, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Tim, I love your seemingly haphazard path, right? Like, or unexpected path as far as how you arrive. I mean, I kind of think most people have that, although like that's one of my favorite parts about the podcast is asking like, how'd you get where you are? Because it's never the way most people would probably have imagined that you got there, right? And the
Absolutely.
nonprofit burnout piece is so real. I was literally just last month at a huge nonprofit organization annual conference and helping, some of the executive leadership, doing some sessions with the those who were in attendance on
Mhm.
messaging their storylines and whatnot. And nonprofit sectors are a huge place where burnout can happen because of exactly what you said. There's so much
Yeah.
heart, there's such a give first mentality, and it's difficult for a lot of people to put it away in a sense. Would you say, like, how would you phrase that, Tim?
I would. I think people will have a hard time refreshing and
Yeah,
rebooting, and they
yeah,
they need that time and the separation because it is so passion driven.
right.
When something's passion driven, it's hard to let that thing go.
Yeah,
And so, but at the same time, complacency
yes.
will steep in. And so I share that about my experience. Not that I don't have a regard anymore for the missions of either of
Yeah,
those
of course.
organizations.
Of course.
My last one, like I said, Girl Scouts, love the mission and the purpose. Have
Sure.
a daughter that I encourage to it as well.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's just really, as a whole, I feel like things are missing, whether it's on the HR side of
Yep.
dealing, working with those employees, but
Mhm.
also one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to passion and burnout, and I
Mhm.
learned this more in my time at Girl Scouts,
Okay.
hundreds of thousands of volunteer leaders. Think of it, your
Mhm.
troop
Yep.
leaders, your service unit leaders.
Yep.
And
Totally.
when they sign up, you think about the commitment. My daughter
Yes.
signs up at 8 years old to become a Girl Scout. They stay all the way till 18 when they've committed 10 years of their life
Yeah.
to this.
Yes.
And if you do anything for 10 years, if you're not, feeding yourself and refreshing,
Totally.
burnout, just that
Totally.
rundown sets in.
Totally. Well, that's a great segue, because I'm sure Fox Search Group was in part just a new path, a new refreshing start for you. And I kind of want to think through, our listeners are probably curious about Fox Search Group in terms of what you provide in terms of search for careers and for people who are looking for their next step. And, frankly, right now is a time a lot of people are doing that. So would you
Yes,
start
sir.
out, Tim, just telling us the nuts and bolts of what Fox Search Group does, and who they help, and then we'll go into the light system around some of the hangups folks have, and especially now. So tell us what Fox Search Group is, what's the mission, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so Fox Search Group is a national IT and executive search and staffing group.
Love
So
it.
we work with partners coast to coast. In fact, our entire workforce is remote. We do not have what you would think of as traditional brick and mortar.
Yep.
Because of that, it gives us a lot of flexibility. And
Sure.
when we talk about being search and staffing, we're so much more than your traditional recruitment agency, because our why is to fix what's broken in hiring.
Yeah.
So whether it's myself coming from my background of going, all these processes are broken, let's try to fix that to improve the customer experience, but also our employee experience. Also, our founder, Terry Petzold, comes from the other side. He was in software sales and executive recruitment for years. And we're seeing just this compounding, the brokenness that is occurring there. And so we do that work by making real human relationships. No one ever receives, random, what we call resume shotgunning nationally, because at the end of the day, I don't know what you need until I've had the opportunity to really meet with you. And that's evidenced by that consulting mindset of sitting down at the table. You say you need X, but now we realize you actually need Z, and we help to bring that to you. So we're more than computers, technologies, and people. At the end of the day, our why is helping people fix what's broken. And we do that through consultation, prioritizing long-term fit over short-term wins. We listen, we care, all of those pieces. And so that's a little bit of our nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I love that. And Tim, talk to me about the IT focus and why Terry felt like that was critical, because we have a ton of audience members and clients and people who are in our orbit who are in tech, science, IT, all kinds of specialization or specialized fields. So why the focus on IT, and is that harder? Talk to me about the IT component.
IT, the focus on that comes from the founder. Again, being in software sales, the relationships were natural to those tech executives. When you zoom out from that, Cindy, when we consider all of the various functions of a business or a company, there's not one out there that has evolved at the speed of IT. You think about customer support, customer experience. We've got some new technology that makes those things neat and cool and streamlined. But at the end of the day, that process has stayed pretty steady. Now, in the realm of IT, it is growing so quickly that something that occurred 10 years ago may be no longer relevant today. And that's where the complication comes in for a lot of companies that are looking to fill IT roles. And this is where the consultation comes in. For small and medium-sized businesses in particular, there's a lot of we don't know what we don't know going on there. So they come to us as consultants to say, you guys have seen all these other companies, these people doing all kinds of things out there. Where do we need to be? And how can you help us get there with the right people? Now, on the flip side, you have kind of two different types of IT executives out there. You have those who have sat in long-term tenured positions, 10, 15 years. They built everything, right? They started as the network guy in the closet, and now they're the CIO. And that's great, but it has also caused a little bit of stagnation when it
Sure.
comes to skills and tools. And then you have the opposite. It's the person who's moving every 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
new technology, new project modernization. And so we
Okay.
come together and bring that.
So Tim, if I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, wait, maybe help clarify for us kind of who comes and finds you and is a good fit client? Is it the person looking for the job, or is it the recruiting HR employees in the company? Like, who are your right fit clients? And talk to us about that, and maybe tell us size of companies that are sweet spots for you, maybe whatever that might be.
So maybe something that would come as a surprise. Most folks think that we would work with the HR teams, and that's certainly true. I
Mm-hmm.
would say we work directly with HR teams maybe 30% of the time. The other
Okay.
70% is when a IT executive, CIO, CTO, CDO, pick your flavor of
Sure.
chief,
Of your C-suite.
throw it up. Yeah,
Your C-suite.
pick it up there. And they reach out and they say, hey, listen, Fox, we've got this situation. We've had this job open now for a while. Our internal team's just not bringing us the talent we need. This project's real critical. Can you help?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we do start working with HR, but
Mm-hmm.
it begins relationship wise with that tech executive experiencing the real pain of not being able to deliver on the strategic plan they have for their IT
So
organization.
you just said a red light, which is where I was about to go next. And you
Yeah.
said it sometimes can be about how I'm thinking about the people in the organization that who can't fill the role internally and they're
Mhm.
missing some steps, or I'm wondering what maybe are some common red lights. And you said the barrier or the problem is like we need to be able to follow along our strategic plan by in part by filling this role, right? We need to like get the train back on the track. So when you encounter an HR executive or whoever is bringing you in, are there things they might do better to try to fill the role that they're not doing or that they're not thinking about that you can drop a couple quick tips for? What are they not describing it well? Are they not
Yeah.
sharing it enough? Are they not choosy enough? What's the problem?
Two things usually show up:
Okay.
prioritization and resources. And I'll give you
Hmm.
two examples.
Yeah.
There was one situation we were working with a major food and beverage company,
Okay.
and they had a role posted for a long time for a full time position. It was an
Okay.
SAP ERP position.
Okay.
The company was using staff, contract staff, to
Okay.
fill the function as they're trying to fill the FTE, right?
Okay. Yep.
Well, they were not aligned on prioritization between the tech team and HR. And
Okay.
things were being delayed here. And what was not reconciling in that moment is the tech organization is spending an insane amount of money on contract staffing. And the
Okay.
HR team's KPIs were built around their own budget revenue. So there was a hesitancy to work with an outside agency because they're trying to keep that budget spend low.
Sure.
But organizationally, as a company, they're blowing the top out of this budget on the
Yeah.
contract. So they don't understand those priorities. And then it comes down to resources.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we're working with HR or talent teams, depending on the size of the organization, sometimes there's just a limited number of resources.
Yep.
And whether that's an HR generalist who's having to bear the weight of all of the hiring and the employee handbook and employee counseling, you're only going to get this much of their
Mm-hmm.
resource allocated to finding you the person. In fact, most of the times they don't. They post a job, let's see what comes in. That's a difficult proposition for the hiring manager because statistically, 20-25% of all available talent is what we would consider active and maybe looking at a job board. So that's
Okay.
oftentimes leaving the best passive talent completely untapped for the
Mm,
work that needs to happen.
interesting. So you're
Yeah.
kind of doing some educating a lot of times, right? From kind of a higher level
Mm.
for a lot of those individuals who understandably are trying to fill the role, do the quick things, make sure that they're kind of doing the shotgun approach, and you'd rather teach them how to do it, like with a pistol. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
well, again, kind of going back, there's a lot of, they don't know what they don't know. And so when HR receives this IT position that they need to hire for, that the common process is, well, we're going to post it to the job boards. Most HRIS systems now will spray it to 50 job boards out there. You know what I'm saying? But when I say they don't know what they don't know, one, they don't completely understand that role. They don't understand the scarcity of that particular kind of talent. They assume that an IT specialist is an IT specialist, or a data person is the same as a network person. Well, those things just aren't true. There's a real market, the same way if you were looking to buy fresh bananas, from Walmart or Albertsons or one of the others. Like, you need to know your market. And with that, we lead consultatively. When we're in our intake calls, we are typically have all of our tools up, and we're saying, hey, listen, this particular individual you're looking for your on-site role, well, there are only 20 people in this metro that even remotely fit, 60, 70% of the qualifications that you're looking for. Right. So even with the most aggressive of recruitment plans, you're going to have a difficult time going for that. So we help think through how we're going to market. Do we need to consider, does this need to become hybrid or remote? Do we have the talent even here to do that? And a lot of teams just don't think through that. And so that kind of comes back to the resources. And that's what makes us a specialty and a true partner to a lot of these clients out there.
Well, and you said, prioritization, resources, and I'm hearing just so much expertise around the research for the role that you provide. I mean, it just goes to show, as with so many situations where we need a helper like you, we can't see what we can't see. We don't know what we don't know. And so you can bring that, that measured look at the situation with so much experience that's behind you. And I'm thinking now also, let's just, for example, and stay with the food and beverage organization you were mentioning earlier, Tim, let's just imagine you're through that engagement with them and you've gotten them to that, the win that they wanted and needed. What are some ways that you would say they've learned some green light strategies or things that they now are doing after you leave the engagement? And, what are some of the things they've learned by that point in time? What are the wins?
I wish I could share that there were wins in that example. Unfortunately, that did not, all of that advice did not come to fruition. They just kind of stuck with what they had.
Sometimes that happens.
It does happen. One of the things, though, that we focus on a lot, and there are other companies out there that do this in a more full-time nature, but again, we grow where we're planted. And so if we have the knowledge and advice, we share it in the moment, and it comes back to process.
Okay.
Because a lot of these companies, Cindy, when we're talking about what's causing these issues, everyone's being sold on technology today. Hey, this tool will fix this, this tool will fix this, this tool will fix this. But one of the things that I've learned from the very beginning of my career is without right processes, it does not matter what you lay on top of it. In fact, adding technology to broken processes only complicates the matter. Case in point, I was working with another client of ours. We were helping them build out a center of excellence here recently.
Okay.
And it was a large scale project. So we were working in tandem. They had some of their own exclusive searches that they were trying to work, and we were, allocated these searches to work on. And if this one stalled, it'd get passed on to us. And so as we're going through that, there was a troubled search that got handed to us saying, hey, we can't identify the person. Our team's not seeing it. Would you run it? Well, quickly, my team starts running into everyone in the market who had applied months ago for this role. And as we're talking to them, they're saying, hey, I applied. I went through, this Workday system.
Yeah.
I never heard a word. I didn't hear that my application was received. I was going to get a call. Well, next thing you know, Cindy, we're presenting candidates who have previously applied. Now, for those listening that are in executive recruitment, you're like, Tim, why are you throwing that away?
Yeah,
candidate ownership. But hear me out on this, because it was a learning experience for the organization. We
absolutely.
presented these candidates and we said, hey, listen, by the way, there's an issue going on inside of your talent organization.
Okay.
You have qualified people applying for roles, and you're about to spend a lot of money for this
Yeah.
particular search. I think it was
Mhm.
going to be about $45,000, just to give you a number for the fee that was going to be assessed on this role.
Yeah.
And we said, we're about to give you a candidate that had originally applied, but because of your broken process, it's
Mm.
about to cost you on this one role a lot of money. And this is what I got back, Cindy. They said, listen, we've had about 150 candidates apply for that role. We've got a lot of roles. There's no way we can get to all of them. And I said, okay, but for $45,000, do you think you could change something? Because my team has gone through 1,500 candidates on your
Wow.
project. Jaw drops, and like, 1,500. I said, yes, you've heard that correctly. And we have gone through all of them. We have validated. We are presenting you the best.
Yeah.
And Cindy, I share that to highlight the importance of process. So when I
Mm-hmm.
joined Fox Search Group, I came in as an operations leader.
Mm-hmm.
Process operations is the fabric of my identity. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we laid those tracks first at Fox.
Yep.
And then once we had our processes fixed, we laid on the technology that is certainly bleeding edge on
Yep.
top of that process that allows us to work at a 10x pace than most internal teams and to deliver with quality. And I don't share that to toot our horn, but I share that for your audience to understand this current job and labor market that's
Yes.
going on. They're seeing
Mm-hmm.
job postings, they're applying, it's crickets, what's going on. And I
Mm.
want to say, yes, most organizations have terribly broken recruiting and HR processes that
Mm.
is causing this glut of talent to be able to
Mm.
move nowhere in this
Yeah.
marketplace.
Wow. That's incredible. What a unique storyline to bring it all together, Tim, because you're right. That's really at the core of it in terms of what the biggest red light is. It's process. It's also the
Yeah.
green light. If it's going right and correctly, your green light, you're going to be green lit to a better talent pool with prioritization that's been well researched, that's a good fit. And, for some of our newer listeners and audience members, the red light, green light messages in these podcasts relate to, right, like, what's the red light? What's the risk? What's the green light? What gets us to go? Because here at On Point, of course, we're always talking about how to engineer your messaging such that you're taking your audience from seeing you as a red light of risk to seeing you and your proposition as a green light of go. And so our model, which is what the book is about, that's going to be released this summer. It's all about how to get your audience from the red light of risk to the green light of go. And you're telling us today, Tim, that for you and your people and your industry, that's process. Getting underneath the hood, if you will. So this is a call to all all
Yeah.
of those who are in those HR and talent organizations. Like, how's your process? Where is it broken? Is there a little hole in the bucket that's making it leaky where you might need that outside help,
Yeah.
like I'm suggesting? Because this is an iterative process. Every process, our process is always, we're always trying to fix stuff that we can do better and more efficiently. And so to have an eagle eye on that is huge. So thanks
Well,
for sharing that, Tim. Yeah.
I feel with you too. We have kind of two customers, right? This is the interesting thing about executive recruitment.
Mhm.
We've got our clients and the companies, but we also have the candidate side. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
when it comes to some of those red lights, Cindy, just to share with your
Yeah.
audience,
Hmm.
on the people side, we get executives that come to us every day. I am beginning a job search. Who do you know? Do you have a job for me? And so one of the things that we do, we don't turn down any conversation at Fox. If even if I don't have that job that I'm actively hiring for, I want to know you.
Right.
And
Love
one of
that.
the red lights that I'm hearing a lot, Cindy, as I'm chatting with executives, I'm talking CIO, CTO
Mhm.
level individuals, you know, um, is a focus on competency. And so when I'm hopping on calls, and I'll kind of unpack that a little bit,
Sure.
the immediate thing that starts showing up is tenure,
Okay.
and dealing with things very vaguely. Led
Oh.
digital transformation, right? That's the biggest. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 100,000 times in my time here at Fox, and I go, great, everything's digitally transforming
Right. That's
today.
table stakes, as Deborah would say.
Yeah, it is. And the problem, though, Cindy, we're in a market where you get your next job in one of two ways. You are either going to know someone, you're going to get a referral, and you're basically going to borrow the relationship equity from one person and apply it to another to get you into that role. But the other one is going to be won through sales, right? And I share this with a lot of the candidates or even future clients that I work with. They don't think about the gate crashing, the application to these roles, right? We live in a time where people are like, I don't even apply anymore because I don't hear back. But quite frankly, most people, Cindy, as they present themselves, it's boring. It's just boring. And the story is like the other 1,000 people that have applied for that role. And so when we think about red lights, that coming back to competency, everyone has a desire to prove competency, right? Like I have a desire to be accepted and that people know that I know how to use the tools that I say that I can use. But they never move from competency to confidence and dealing with the issue of value. So great. You led digital transformation. Well, 50% of all digital transformation projects fail. Were you on a successful digital transformation or a failing one? And then what did you enable, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I help in terms of working with candidates move from the red light to the green light of unpacking competence to go, this is good, but there's so much more. There's a golden thread throughout your whole career that identifies who you are, and you're not bringing any of that to light.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to say kind of now hear this to everyone listening about what you just said, Tim, around digital transformation is vague and everything that is coming out is boring. This is where, ta-da, the sticky story comes in. It's like specificity is the recipe. It's the yeast inside of a sticky story that you must learn to tell. You must learn to tell a sticky, specific story that has detail, because saying you did digital transformation is boring and not good enough. Done. Period. End of story. So you need to shine a light on the specifics of your storylines and your wins so that you have this golden thread through your resume, but also in your interview. So you are standing out, and that takes time and practice and thought more than anything. It takes thought. And it's like, what are the reasons that I am uniquely fitted for this particular position? What are the wins? How did I get there? And how did I do that versus anyone else that's in the marketplace who's being interviewed for this role? Because your differentiator, everybody, is how you tell a sticky story.
Absolutely.
Done. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's the reason people are getting job offers right now, and it's the reason people aren't. They either have the sticky stories or they don't.
They don't. And the other difficult thing, Cindy, so much of the content that we take in today is AV. And so for individuals that even go to the front door of an organization, we know that's the resume. Right. And there are many people, and we mentioned our mutual friends and even our strategic partners over here at Fox Search Group. Shout out to DNS executive manager.
Deborah Boggs. She's so fantastic.
They're excellent. We don't provide those particular services at Fox. We love to refer out to that. But to your point, we think about messaging, and a lot of people don't apply that message to the audible form of speaking. That golden thread. And
Yeah, that
then
verbal
in a more
communication.
difficult way, they're not doing that in their resumes.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been sharing with candidates most recently, just because there's a lot of friends that we have in the market that just aren't moving in the talent pool,
Mhm. Yeah.
and we're sharing, your resume and those who interact with it are so different, and
Mhm.
you've got to give me a compelling reason, right?
Yes.
So, for people who listen to podcasts, we can do that passively. We go,
Yes.
oh, that was really interesting, and keep doing other
Yeah.
things. But what people don't realize, Cindy, is when you apply for a job, your first interview has actually occurred in that moment.
Yeah.
Whatever you presented as your resume was
Mhm.
your first interview.
Mhm.
And I share with people that reading is an active thing.
I love
I
that.
cannot read and multitask, right?
Yes.
Because if I'm truly reading, I'm
Yes.
focusing, I have to look at the
Yes.
letter and I'm hearing it.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so when we deal with that in an active way, where passively we might stick with a video or listening to a story that's not that interesting, but there keeps being some things here and there. Well, with reading, as soon
Mm.
as we lose interest, we're gone, right?
Yeah.
Think about, if you're scrolling Netflix or Amazon Prime looking
Sure.
for a movie, you're checking summary. As soon as it boards you, you're clicking off because you're reading. And
Yep.
that same thing happens for people and not being able to share that golden thread and that true value prop. They
Yep.
blend in with everyone else. It's
Yeah.
not interesting, it's not compelling, and they're
Mhm.
getting skipped. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. S-
that sticky story resonates in a big way. And
Yeah.
even beyond the individual sticky stories, is
Mhm.
what is the thing about you that
Mhm.
when we talk about that golden thread that's always been present in your career, so that when you step away from this company, it is a natural entrance into the next because that's what goes with you,
Yeah. I love
right?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just
So
I just wanted to share that, Cindy,
yeah, I love
because so
that.
many people are in that situation right
That
now.
golden thread. Yeah, no, no, believe that's got to have a huge role. I know it does have a huge role. Yeah, so much goodness here, Tim. This has been an amazing discussion and conversation. We are almost out of time, but I want to ask one more quick question for you. Tell us, maybe there's a book you're reading that you would like to share, how it's affected you recently. Maybe it's a business book or a personal book, or something that you'd like to suggest others do for a resource? What's been on your bedside table, so to speak?
The book that I'm reading through, Cindy, right now is called Writing for Busy Readers.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so a lot of this advice that I've shared with others, obviously we see it
sure.
out in the natural environment, but it's also a thing for me. I've noticed that the way we communicate has certainly changed, right?
Yeah.
Bygone are
Mhm.
the days that we will sit out on the front porch for hours
Yeah.
having long conversations.
Fortunately,
Everything now happens in bites. And
yes.
so, how can we write in such a way, speak in such a way as to deliver that same message, but in a tighter manner that allows all of that same metadata that was once in a large message to be
Yeah.
compressed and
Yeah.
usable. And
That's
so
really,
that's been what I've been reading. I encourage others to check it
yeah.
out. It helps your reading, it helps your speaking, and
Yeah.
at the end of the
Great.
day, delivering your value in a
Yeah.
concise way.
So great. So great. Love it. Tim, this has been so great. We will absolutely make sure people know how to find you through, I know you're at LinkedIn. I know you've got, and we'll put your Box Search Group website in the show notes as well. We're so grateful to have had you with us this afternoon and appreciate your wisdom from all the storylines you've shared. Thank you for coming.
I appreciate the opportunity, Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, audience, this is a wrap for today's episode. And today, as usual, the typical homework assignment, if you're willing, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to get out there and see what you can do in your work life, in your life to move anybody who's potentially at a red light to a green light through some of the strategies that you're learning and hearing in every episode of Red Light, Green Light. I'm your host, Cindy Skalicky with On Point Communications, and we'll be back again next week with another incredible guest to share more wisdom and stories with you. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Share this with someone that would like to hear more from Tim, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye, everybody.